It's another episode of Social Distancing at the Chamber. As always, we're joined by our CEO, Glenn Hammer, for a segment we call Happy Hour. With Hammer Glenn, we've got another A-list guest. He's on the road between Phoenix and Yuma back to his district. Glenn, why don't you introduce our guest for today?
Garrick, thank you. This is our first action show, so we're very privileged to have Representative Dunn with us today. Not just a thoughtful citizen legislator, but a very successful business person in a lot of different areas. Mr. Dunn, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Glenn, glad to be
here. Right off of the bat, we'd just like to get your. I'm going to first go federal before we drop back to the state level, but one of the programs we've been aggressively pursuing for our members and all businesses across the state is the federal Paycheck Protection program. That for a lot of small businesses seems to have been a lifeline, but would love to get your perspective on that federal program.
Yeah, that's a good point, and we were very happy that the federals did that right away, getting it out to us. We applied during the first round with our sport clips businesses. We did not get the application through. I mean, we put it in the first day, but we were one of the ones that didn't make it on the first round. Applied again with a different bank on the second round, and we got ours approved on Wednesday, and that's a huge relief for my wife and I on being able to put our people back on payroll. But yeah, it's important to small businesses to be able to get it. I know there's a lot of still trying to apply and still working on that. But it's really a good program as far as being able to pay for your employees, 75% paying some of the rent and some of the utilities. So it definitely will extend a lifeline as we transition back to opening to having reduced income, being able to have some of those expenses paid.
Well, in terms of connecting the dots, one of the points of that program was we want to keep employees connected to employers. And we know in most industries, certainly including salons and barbershops, there's going to be some different protocols. So keeping people connected, to me, just the common sense would be it would make it easier and faster and safer as the reopening process begins.
Yeah, that's correct. We kept our managers on staff when we were forced to kind of lay off the rest of our folks because we weren't sure when the PPP was going to come around. Unfortunately, not all of our employees were able to get unemployment. About half of them did. So we got approved on Wednesday. Our employees are all going to come back on payroll starting Monday. Doing the rehiring process. They'll do some more training, do some online stuff, work in the salons, getting things cleaned up, and just getting them all reconnected with each other as a team and being ready for whenever we get an announcement to open back up. But it's important to be. Our managers have been keeping in contact with them, especially the ones that are make sure they didn't have family members sick, what's going on through this whole time period. So our managers have done a great job just staying connected with our team members.
Mr. Dunn, Glenn needs a haircut. I just go in the backyard and roll the clippers across my head. I know that you're going to be in compliance with CDC and state health guidelines. When Glenn goes into one of your shops, what do you think he's going to see?
The protocols that we've got outlined that we've suggested to the governor's office and we're going to do in sport clips will probably be above and beyond the guidelines. So basically, we have an online check-in system at Sport Clips, so you'll be able to have an app. You can go online and check in. It'll tell you can pick your stylist, or it'll tell you how long the wait is. You'll be able to come up and to the door. You'll check in physically, tell you that you're here. We're going to have somebody up in the front. You'll check in saying, "I'm here." We'll ask you a few questions. Have you been around anybody sick? Have you got anybody quarantined in your home? How are you feeling? And if you're feeling fine, then we're going to physically push the computer and check you in. And then you can go back out. If there's room, we'll allow 2 people to sit inside. If not, you'll go back out to your car, and we'll text you when it's your turn to come in. Because we're going to try to keep only 10 people inside the salon at any time. So that's the check-in process as you're coming to there. Our people that are inside will be wearing a mask. The person that's checking you in, and then the stylist will be wearing a mask as well.
No, that's all that sounds like that makes a ton of sense. And that's, to me, again, so important, such an important feature of the Paycheck Protection program. So everyone is together as you move forward to the reopening. You also have a lot of experience in the agriculture sector. We read a lot about food being produced and being dumped. Just like your thoughts on what's going on. And we know that that's, I believe, $5 billion or so part of the Yuma economy.
Yeah, agriculture is a huge part for Yuma, a huge part for our state. With the supply chain being disrupted, with the service industry, hotels, and the conventions, that's a big segment, and it's a little different percentage depending on whether you're talking about milk or you're talking about produce. So as the grocery stores volume went up, that volume went up about 20%, but that wasn't enough to take on the shutdown of all the rest of the food service industries. So you have the supply chain that's people don't realize how from farm to the end user, the home, how tight it is. So when you have a disruption, then there's no place for the product to go. The crops were planted early on, so we had to disc at the tail end of the crops here. Lettuce and Yuma was disc down, it wasn't harvested. You have milk being dumped. There's just not enough volume, even though everybody's trying to drink milk at the grocery stores. There's just not enough volume to do that. And then the different thing on the chickens and the our food products for the beef and the chicken, they shut down processing plants midstream. It's creating a supply issue in the grocery stores, and it's just because there's not enough people processing the actual product. So, but and you have too much on the other end. But we'll figure that out. The sooner we get things back going, the better, because animals are being bred, so for a certain date to be delivered to the whether it's to Hickman's as chickens or whether it's to Tyson. So those animals are still being bred, and the ones that are already pregnant are going to still have babies. So there's a disruption in the food supply chain just because of packing plants and the volume of food service.
How concerned should we be as consumers that there will be a shortage of protein?
If we can, we need it's one of those we watch and see. If we can get the President Trump has a good order that he's trying to get those people open back up, making sure that they can do their social distancing and keep the plants open. If we can keep the plants open and the employees in those plants safe, then the supply chain will rebound pretty quick, because the animals the farmers have the animals. We just got to be able to get them processed and get them to the stores.
Got it.
So it's a wait and see kind of thing.
Mr. Dunn, we visited with Yuma Mayor Doug Nichols on this show previously. We also visited with the head of the Yuma County Chamber. The report that we heard was that as far as workers in the Yuma area fields, they have mostly begun their migration into Salinas, and that those operations were fairly smooth. Was that your experience?
Yeah, we transitioned most of the produce out 1st of April. In the middle of April is when we're finished harvesting. There's still some cabbage being harvested now. They did transition up there. They had some problems with some of the H-2A workers being transferred because of being able to come. They were still coming in, new ones coming in from Mexico. So they got the federal government worked on getting that done. They're having some implementation issues in California as far as meeting the social distancing and things that the different counties are requiring, but the companies are working through that. We had a phone call with shippers and growers and labor unions the other day, and so they're kind of going to this, and they're kind of have to go through basically using every other line instead of going down every road. They're putting in every other line, and then they're making two passes, so it's raising their cost of harvest, but they're trying to keep everybody safe. But all the people are wearing masks from the time they get on the bus until they go through their whole day's work to make sure that they're keeping their people safe. They're putting half the amount of people on the buses when they go, so they can have alternate seats. And then some of the companies are making sure that they sit in an assigned seat, so if someone does end up sick, they know who was sitting around them and where they worked at. So they're being very diligent. They have a very good food safety program anyway. This is just adding the other components of COVID to their food safety program.
One of the things we brought up with Mayor Nichols, and I had the opportunity to travel to Israel with him a number of years ago, I read that in addition, most people know that the leafy greens, we're having leafy greens, they're coming from Yuma in the winter season. What a lot of people don't know, I do know because I'm Jewish, the holiest matzah in the country comes from Yuma. And when I brought this up in Israel, when I was with Mayor Nichols, he said, you know who you need to talk to? Representative Dunn.
Yep.
So Could you talk a little bit about that? Because that's sort of, you know, when I'm on a matzo constrained diet, I always think of Yuma.
Yeah, you know, we've got yes, we started about 10 years ago. A guy named Rabbi Henry Jester, and then Rabbi Lowy. They came out. Rabbi Lowy's the baker. They came out. They're looking for a dry area to do their wheat. They normally buy. Basically, what they do is you buy this white wheat, and from the time that the grain is mature, but is physically able to be mature, for that last 30 days, they don't want any water, no rain, no moisture, so it'd be unleavened bread like the Old Testament. So that's what they're looking for. And so when they buy these, and they have somebody watch it 24/7 for that last 30 days, and they get rain all the time on the East Coast of New York. So they came out for a dry climate where we have really good wheat crops anyway. So they were looking for that, started working with us, and so it's just because in the last 30 days, we've only had one time where we got rain in the last 10 years. And so they've had a great crop. So they come out here. It's the ultra Orthodox Jewish community out of New York. They're very respectful. And so there's an article about it on the front page of the New York Times. If you Google that, Matzo New York Times, it shows up on the article they did for us a few years ago. But so they're a great company to work with. We've been doing that for like I said, last 10 years. One of the sad note on that, the week before Easter, right before Passover started, Rabbi Lowy, the baker that we've been working with for 10 years, he contacted COVID and passed away. And so we've lost a really good friend that was, and their family's still going to take over and continue to do that. But I talked to him like 2 weeks before that about the crop and what was going on in the New York Jewish community there with the coronavirus, and he was very worried about it. He had a lot of people sick, and he went into the hospital and died. So that's kind of a sad story, but it shows you how everybody keeps saying it's a small number of percentages of people that are being hurt, but you know, there's a lot of us that it can touch you and it can be pretty profound.
No, and I'm very sorry to hear about the rabbi's passing, and I appreciate you sharing the story with me, because that's the best explanation I've heard as to why it's the holiest matzah in America. And I come from New York, so I could certainly understand the precipitation differences between Arizona, Yuma, and New York. So thank you for sharing that with us.
You bet. They're great. And when they take it back to their bakery, they do everything by hand inside their little bakery, and they work for several synagogues. And when they do the harvest, they come out and they even though we're in the seed business, the grain business, they check our combines, they make sure it's perfect. They approve it. They bring out different rabbis each year, and they watch the whole process. It's got to be. We can't start harvesting until afternoon because we want to let the dew get off the crop, and that's it's 110 degrees outside. And there's no dew, but that's their principle. That's what they've done, and they've done for really just for a while. Then it's got to be in before dark. It's all Old Testament principles. So you can read the Bible, you can understand why they do their things.
Well, I'll just say it certainly helped Mayor Nichols when he was in Israel. Gave him a little bit of extra street cred. So thank you, Mr.
Representative Dunn, Old Testament, New Testament, you do it all. So thanks for taking the time on your drive down to Yuma today. We don't know when you're going to be back at the Capitol, but we know that when you do return, you're going to be raring to go and one of our most thoughtful legislators. So thank you for being with us today on your drive down.
Thanks for inviting me. Everybody be safe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye-bye. Thank you.